Mm.
But it's my homeowners association.
Really? It's an HOA.
Yeah, because we originally had this scheduled for last week, but we ended up moving it to this week. So in all fairness, he thought it was last week, so he scheduled it this week.
Yeah.
Yes, and anyone who is on, if you've gotten your notice, and Colby's here,
Oh, wow.
and you are having trouble finding your access key to vote electronically, the access key is on your notice by your name and the address. It's 16-digit alphanumeric code. They just forgot to highlight it in yellow.
Okay.
So if anyone asks, pass that on.
I posted that on Nextdoor earlier this afternoon.
Thank you. And I'll try to get something out tomorrow when I send out reminders.
I do, are the guests muted or are they gonna?
Guests are muted.
Guests are muted, okay. I guess if you have a question or something, you will save it towards the end. You can always put it in the chat.
Or the Q&A.
Or Q&A.
And then we need to mute and unmute ourselves, right?
Yes. We'll go over that in the introduction once we're ready to go. Are y'all ready?
Okay.
The sevens are ready when you are. Everybody's
I'm
here.
ready. Okay. Thank you, everybody in attendance tonight for the FORHA Meet the Candidates Forum. Thank you to the candidates for entering this election and volunteering to give your time and talents to the benefit of our community. Thank you to the FORHA board and the staff for arranging this forum so that the community can hear directly from the candidates on these important issues. Tonight, we will largely progress in the same manner as we have in past Meet the Candidates forums. The format will be as follows. We will have a 2-minute opening statement. We will have 5 questions with each candidate providing a 1-minute response to each of those questions. And then we will have a 2-minute closing remark by each of the candidates as well. Judy is going to keep time, and I will assist the candidates in maintaining the speaker order. As we progress through the questions, each candidate will be given the opportunity to answer first, and then we will shift to the next numbered candidate as the first speaker for the following topic. I've numbered the candidates from 1 to 5 by last name, and we will proceed as follows. Number 1, James Branham. He goes by Jim. Number 2, David Fairhurst. Number 3, Teal Harris. Number 4, Becky Hutchison. And number 5, Colby Sample. We appreciate and expect that the candidates will provide full and fair responses to each of the questions with the civility expected of our community. This forum is being conducted via Zoom as a webinar. As a result, only myself and the candidates will be viewable on camera and heard via audio. We ask that the candidates unmute themselves prior to speaking and mute themselves again after their response in order to maintain the best possible audio feed. In the event that time allows, we will open the floor to community questions. If any member of the community has a question they wish to ask of the candidates, please send it to Judy via the chat section or of the meeting or through the Q&A section that's also available, should be on your Zoom monitor. The questions posed tonight will be a mixture of questions from past candidates forums as well as questions provided in response to FORHA's request for questions from the community. As anyone not living under a rock for the past couple of years knows, there's a couple of issues that have been at the forefront of recent FORHA meetings and elections. These revolve around transparency, how to resolve issues between community members and the board, and how to go about resolving conflict in our community. These questions that we'll be asking tonight have not been provided to any candidate. And the only other copy that's been given out tonight was the one that I just handed Judy so that we can have documentation of the questions that are being asked tonight for future Meet the Candidates forums if they are needed. With that, we'll go ahead and begin. And so, as I discussed the order earlier, and this is the opening remarks section, so each candidate will have 2 minutes to discuss anything they would like about their candidacy themselves and introduce themselves to the community. So with that, Jim, if you will start us off, I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Jim Branham. It's my intention to pay attention to what the membership desires are rather than assuming what I think they should be. Because if we don't hear what the membership is saying, we get locked into the power politics and the problems that's coming with, as we've seen the last couple of years. I'm committed to improve the association's relationship with the homeowners. When the association needs to be moved from an aggressive position to a helpful point, as that purpose and mission is different from the actions of the last several years. Physically conservative is because it's the membership's money rather than the association's. That means we must retain and protect our reserves, not expend funds for things that only benefit a very small portion of our membership. I believe in honesty as practiced by keeping the decision-making process open for review. I've had several folks complain about the number and frequency of executive sessions coupled with decisions that seem to be already made. I believe that we need to practice integrity to have the membership's stated best interest as the main driver. What the membership wants is our goal rather than telling them what they need. I believe that we need to review all expenditures from a do we really need this position rather than will it complete some project or be nice. I really want to start a very careful review to last until October, November of next year of the actual park usage before spending more money there. That means getting and keeping records of actual usage via game cameras as it is our land and you can video your own land. This is critical information we need to have before spending more of the membership's money. I want to review our entire budgeting process for ways to open up the homeowners' input as was intended in the Fourth Amendment bylaws. This is the homeowners association, not a taxing authority driven by outside interests. I want to look for ways to reduce dues. I want to look for different ways to fund park improvements. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. I appreciate it. Next is David Fairhurst. You have the floor for 2 minutes.
Hi, I'm David Fairhurst. I've been a resident here for 24 years, raised my 2 daughters here. As I stated in my statement, we just love it here. I have been on the B3 restrictions committee for about 20 years, chairman. And that was one way that I was asked to run for office in the past. I served 4 years. The reason I was asked was because they liked the approach I took. Whenever there were neighbor conflicts, I like to go meet the neighbor, talk to them and explain restrictions. And then a lot of times go meet their neighbor who they want to build, something towards. So while I was on the board, I oversaw the parks. I did a lot of projects. I enjoyed it, a lot of volunteer projects. I'm the one that installed the play set at the Boots Gabbets Park and the drinking fountain at the other park. But I also led a lot of tree trimming and other types of projects, and it was really enjoyable to meet my neighbors from other parts of Fair Oaks. I was involved with the parks before that. When my kids were small, there was a move to put any play set in. And of course that was pushed up against, but we did. We had those initial play sets installed, and it's been nice to see a lot of the improvements. I felt my time on the board was, I helped improve things. I'd like to see that continue, but I like the neighborly fashion. I like listening to people. I like to communicate back and then have open meetings. I mean, we had enjoyable meetings in the past, and I'm sure there are now too. That's just who I am. A few other things, I do, we have a very large senior portion to our community, and I've always been very respectful, enjoy the seniors. I'm obviously becoming one. So I like to, think of the fiduciary responsibilities to them as well as any kind of support. And my 2 minutes are up. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Teal Harris.
Hi, I'm Teal Harris. I live up on Rocking Horse Lane. Like I said, my horse has been sick, so people are asking me what they can do to help. I moved here in 2012, at the beginning of 2012. I'm born and raised in Corpus Christi. I'm a native Texan. My family had their family ranch in Comfort. My grandfather lived in Kerrville, and spent all my childhood running around this area. I met my husband. Just a little background about me. I worked in Austin, Texas, and met my husband, and we moved to New Braunfels in '97, and then had to move out of state. And when we were able to move back in state, we chose Fair Oaks Ranch because of the parks and trails. And I just love this community. I love the uniqueness of this community. I think that we have a treasure, and I think so many people that have moved here for the same reasons. As far as on the board, you know, I like what David had to say. I think that conversation is so important. Our demographics, we've almost doubled in population. I know we went up 78% from, I believe, 2008 to 2018. And so now it's 2020. We have a lot of new neighborhoods that have joined this community with Front Gate, Elkhorn Ridge, and the neighborhoods off of Battle Intense and or Ventura and Keeneland. And there's a lot of families there. But we still have a lot of senior citizens that have lived here that, or not even seniors, but people that have planned, that have lived here for years and were planning on retiring. And I want to find a way to be able to have a conversation and bridge this community together, because what's important to one person may not be important to somebody else. But I think that if we can talk about it in a way, as opposed to creating issues or diversity, then we have the ability to do that. People are so friendly here. So is my 2 minutes up? Okay, that's fine. Thanks. I'm an active talker, so
okay,
you know,
I'll have to
gotta
jump
shut me up.
Becky Hutchison.
Hey, thanks, Jonathan. Good evening, everyone. I'm Becky Hutchison. I live right around the corner from the FORHA offices on Nole Ace. Thank you all so much for being here tonight. Thanks to FORHA for hosting this session, and thank you for your vote in 2017 and all the support you've given me over the last 3 years. I'm actually the only incumbent seeking a new term. I hope that you were all able to read my statement on the ballot. It's pretty good, but what it doesn't say is how funny I really am. So I'm a native Texan. I grew up in San Antonio and graduated from Robert E. Lee High School. I also got through the fabulous Trinity University, and I have an MBA from Virginia Tech. I had a crush on the Coyote when I was growing up. I still kind of do. I spent time in some great cities like Chicago, DC, and LA before returning home in 2015. I love deep dish pizza and the beach, and I'm a huge Kirk Cousins fan. I love running under the stars before everyone else wakes up, Petite Sirah, spotted deer coffee, and tacos. But why I'm here tonight, the reason I'm running is to help create a better future for our community, the same reason I ran in 2017. And I'm not only ready, I'm energized, excited, and particularly after hearing what the other candidates are saying, to help drive decisions that support our mission to be good stewards of our common properties and funds, to preserve our investments by promoting deed restriction compliance and provide appropriate forums for communication. I believe we've done some good work in these areas, but we can do even better. As you may know, there's been a lot of controversy over increases in HOA dues, spending on parks and trails, and updated bylaws during my current term. I've consistently voted to spend conservatively, approving reasonable budget amounts where they made sense to support our mission. I've also voted against dues increases and parks investments that were not in line with the natural aesthetic of our community. I haven't always had support from the rest of the board for many of the positions I've taken, but even when it's been most uncomfortable, I've been confident that each individual is on the board to positively impact Fair Oaks Ranch. We're all good people, and I believe in this board and the people of Fair Oaks Ranch. So hoping you'll affirm your support for my leadership for the next 3 years.
Thank you, Becky. Colby Sample.
First off, my name is Colby Sample. Becky, I'm incredibly jealous of your background. Well played. That's pretty cool looking. You are funny. Anyways, so I don't know if you guys got to read my statement. I moved out to Fair Oaks in 2014. I was living in the city of San Antonio, born and raised there. I'm actually from a small place called Hill Country Village. So it's kind of familiar to the back part of Fair Oaks, big lots, a lot of natural wildlife, very similar to Fair Oaks, but in the middle of the city. Anyways, my wife's grandparents, they have lived in Fair Oaks since the beginning. When we used to go visit them, I used to think, how could someone live out here? And then, you know, we had some apartment complexes pop up where we lived, and I was like, okay, I can understand why I want people to live there. So we're in our second home in Fair Oaks. We love it. We plan to make this our home for as long as we possibly can. The reason why I'm running, I work for a Fortune 500 company. I've served on a few different boards there: upstream, downstream marketing, innovation council, president's council. So I'm very familiar with boards. I'm also very familiar with how to communicate and kind of bring people's ideas together. You know, it's kind of like everyone wants to have their cake and eat it too. And I'm usually the guy that kind of has to be like, well, unfortunately, you don't get to have your cake and eat it too, but you can have this, right? So I want to be that guy and to serve our community. I want to be the person that reaches out to the community, has a lot of transparency and understanding of what people want, as well as what I think it needs is, you know, from the community's input. That's why I'm running. By the way, I'm at my kid's baseball game, and they might jump in the truck here any second.
Thank you. All right, on to the first question of the night. And this one, we'll start off with Jim Bronham. And the question for you, Jim, is what drives your motivation to serve?
That gets right down to the bottom line. The bottom line is to make things around me better. And that's what drives my motivation to serve. That drove me to serve in the Marine Corps. That drove me to work with the Bernie High School Junior ROTC for 7 years when my kids were there. And the whole point of everything I do is to try and make things better for the rest of the world.
Thank you. David, what drives your motivation to serve?
So my motivation to serve is generally due to this similar thing that was brought up earlier about the angst in the community. I've got so many friends that disagreed with things going on, and then I saw what was happening with certain past members of the board, and I thought, it's time for me to step back in. Maybe I can help. I can be of value. Like I said, I like to communicate. I like to listen and try to do what's best for the people. I've also served for in a very large organization with many engineers that I had to listen to and serve their best interests. And I like to think of my neighbors that way too. We're all neighbors, and I want to make our community continue to grow and be that well sought place that people like, where people all get along, and we do things responsibly. We're all, and I like to do things like surveys. I know to know what people do in committees, and I think that's my minute.
Thank you. Teal. And if at any point anybody needs me to repeat the question when they get a little bit lengthier, I'll do that if you need me to. But what drives your motivation to serve?
I have always been loved to serve. I've served on 2 other HOA boards before moving to our house here. I actually was in Country Club Estates. But the most part is I love to talk to people. And I love knowing that I can make a difference in other people's lives, no matter who they are. And it always feels good to be able to have people be able to have a conversation, especially in difficult situations, and be able to bring people together where they're no longer, kind of soften the edges of things. It's like a challenge for me. My little, I guess there's a lot of superpowers I don't have. One is cleaning a house, but I can definitely communicate with other people and try to bring people together. And I think that's really what motivated me to serve, is just trying to bridge this community as much as I appreciate everything.
Thank you. Colby.
So when you ask me that question, first thing that comes to my mind is my church has a deal called Serving Sundays, where we go out, we pick, whether it's a Wounded Warrior project or.
And then my computer.
We lost your audio, Colby.
We lost everybody.
Oh, wait, hold on a second.
Is that better?
Yes,
Yeah.
we're back.
Yeah, it was us.
All right. So I was saying, when I think about serving, I think about what my church does. We have a thing called Serving Sundays. We go out to apartment complexes, Wounded Warrior camp, and you either paint a building or fix some landscaping, whatever it may be. But the reason why I feel it's important to serve is because if you have the ability, if you have the time, if you feel that you can do something to help somebody else, we all have the responsibility to do so. So right now I feel like I have the time and I have the ability that I think I could bring something to the table. And so I feel responsible. I feel like this is something I should be doing.
Thank you. Question number 2, and this question we're going to start with David, and then we'll go back down through the list. The question is, subject to taking exception to specific items in the park's master plan, do you support continued expenditures on the park's additions in general?
I think we forgot Becky.
Uh-oh, Becky,
On
did
the
I
last
skip you?
question.
I've already failed my job.
No, you haven't. It's fine. I mean, I feel like I've answered the question a couple of times in different ways. And do I get time now?
Yes, no, well.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Thank you, sir, very much. No. Seriously, I mean, bottom line is I could have said, you know what, I did my term, I'm out of here, I'm good. But point is, it takes a little bit of time to get all the information, to understand kind of what's going on in the community, to sort of get a real feel for how the dots are connecting. And I feel like I'm finally there, and I want some more time to be able to really make an impact in the community. And I think the board has come a long way relative to working together in a tight-knit fashion. When we agree, it's great. When we disagree, it's also great. So I really do believe that we're moving into a different time period. We've turned the corner, and I want to be a part of that because I've got some skills. Nunchuck skills. No, seriously. I think communications could be even better than it is today. And I think that the community can work on peace now. It's good.
Thank you.
Welcome.
All right, question number 2 now. David, we're going to go to you. I'll repeat it. Subject to taking exception to specific items in the park's master plan, do you support continued expenditures on the park additions in general?
The answer is yes. I support continuous improvement. In fact, that's what I felt I was a part of, and even was left the board prematurely because I was moving back to Houston, but kept my house here. And I love seeing improvements, and I drive by the parks all the time, and I remember the things that we did, things you don't realize, of the 50 stumps we ground up out of the ground just to make it look better. And I do support continued improvement. Now, at the same time, I want to do what the members want to do. And if they see a very large expenditure and their costs go up, I don't want to do that. So I want to do what they want to do, and I want to do it very carefully and study it. But I definitely believe in continued improvement and growth for our community, making things better all the time. That's
Teal,
it.
would you like me to repeat the question?
No, I got it. I also agree with the continued improvement. I've seen so many things that have improved with the parks, especially with Norman Vestal. I live right up the hill from there. I see so many more people using the parks just in the last few years, from everything from kids doing yoga to, coming out there early in the morning. And of course it's being used a lot more right now with COVID, but at the end of the day, I do agree. I know that every year my understanding is we revisit the budget and revisit the items on task. And so at this point in time, I think that what we're doing looks great. And I hear those compliments all the time because I also go down to the parks and I'm always on the trails. And obviously I'm a talker, so I'm a lot of people that I like engaging in conversation, and I get a lot of positive feedback about what's going on. Again, with that said, I do agree that there needs to be a conversation to understand where everybody, where other people may not agree with some of those things, and hopefully we can come to some, middle ground along the way. But at this point in time, everything going on, I do agree with.
Thanks. Becky.
Thank you. So first of all, I want to give my appreciation to Deborah Grandjean for her great vision, and to Sarah for just making sure that the parks and trails right now are in the most amazing shape probably they've ever been. I would support maintaining the parks and trails and making sure that they're consistent with our natural aesthetic out here. When we first saw the grand plan for the parks and trails, the new updated version of it, it had things like splash pads on it and other extraordinarily things that didn't seem to match up to kind of what our parks were like. But the stabilization of the parks so that they're no longer necessarily a flood zone that stays flooded for long periods of time, putting in the appropriate barriers for the drainage alongside of Rocking Horse Lane, all of that, all very good. So, Teal's right, the budget gets reviewed every year, and I want to be a part of that to make sure that that the expenditures are appropriate and that they're appropriate for the community and our homeowners.
Thank you. Colby.
I'm also in agreement with continued improvement in parks. I mean, I think a lot in line with what Becky said. We got to keep it somewhat reasonable. The idea is for the parks to be something for our community. We don't want it to be something to where people from outside of our community make it a destination, like i.e. when she said the splash pad, where it's like we don't want half of San Antonio coming to our parks and making it something too extravagant. But we do need to keep up with the mission statement, which is keep the parks up to date and take care of them. So I am for that within reason. By the way, Becky, I know I'm running against you, but I like you. That nunchuck skills comment was amazing.
Jim.
Yes, I agree. We definitely need to maintain our parks and possibly upgrade them. I don't want to make those upgrades without finding out if we need exactly what we need to upgrade in those parks. That leads to spending money that doesn't really have a direction. But as long as we're doing directions that the public, the membership buys into, then I think that's an appropriate way to spend the money.
Thank you. Question number 3, and this one we will start with Teal. And Teal, the question is, have you identified areas in the FORHA budget where you think we can save money without sacrificing services or amenities?
I actually have the budget in front of me, and I've been reading through this, and I've read through it before. And at this point in time, I would say I think that things are pretty solid on. I know we revisit the budget every year. I know that I can only stand in my own shoes, and that's part of why I want to be on this board, is so I can have conversations and learn really about how other people, what's important to other people. So as far as changing, or taking things out of the budget at this point in time, there's not anything specifically. I appreciated that we took out the bathrooms and the splash pads and all the other things back when it was voted upon. But at this point in time, I think there's some solid things that people are using. I'm mainly down at Norman Vestal Park. I'm not over at Boots Gobbets. But if I'm on the board, I know that'll be, I want to learn why more people are doing things there. So at this point in time, no, I don't have anything to change on the budget.
Okay. Becky.
So ideally, I would really like to not have to spend so much on legal expenses. That would be really nice. And when we finally make that happen, it would be a great thing to move some things around so that we can spend more on communications. I think bringing the community together on a more regular basis would be terrific, and it's very much in line with our mission statement. And then the other thing that I have asked questions about in the past is the large Parks and Trail budget. After this year, is it possible that we might be able to extend that over a longer period of time so that we're not having to take larger pieces of the budget on a year-by-year basis that may look like they're in excess or be in excess of $150,000 a year? I'd really like to get that to a point where we're spreading it out over longer terms for projects that are more manageable over time.
Thank you. Colby.
He's on mute.
You're on mute.
Yeah, no, I was trying to figure out how to get unmuted. It was dark here. Lost my train of thought. What was the question again? I'm sorry, Jonathan.
It was, have you identified areas in the FORHA budget where you
Oh, yeah.
think you can save money without sacrificing services or amenities?
Yep. So I was actually looking at that budget yesterday, and I noticed that the legal fees have been creeping up, and along with insurance. I'm assuming the insurance is probably also tied to the legal, and probably will continue to go up if the lawsuit continues. So, you know, I don't know the answer on how to make the lawsuit go away, or, you know, bring peace to it, or, you know, what have you. I obviously have to be a little bit more involved to get to the answers to that. But again, that's kind of my background. That's what I've done in the past with the company I work for now, and that would be one of the things I'd want to try and insert myself into immediately. Because I think if we can get that under control, that would free up money to obviously not have to raise dues, or if we wanted to put that money towards other projects, it would be beneficial.
Thank you. Jim.
I haven't identified specific areas where we can reduce the budget other than cutting back on some of the parks and trails and stretching that out over a longer period of time, as Becky said. The problem is that when you jump it all and you dump it all on a short-term basis, you wind up having a very heavy expense, and then the long range reach drops off, and then other than maintenance expenses. I think if we just take and make it last long, stretch the projects out over a longer period of time, that'll work and do the job.
Thank you. David.
Yes, and I know how difficult that budget is, and I really don't want to see the directory cut out. I know we scaled it back to once every 2 years while I was on the board, and you don't realize how much you miss it until it's gone for a period of time. That's a really nice thing to have. As far as the parks, that's again where I would like to dig a little deeper. I agree with Becky, stretch it out longer if we can, and I'd like to analyze a little bit more. I'm a little curious about the pavilions. I was involved with the Boots Pavilion, and it didn't get used very much. Now, maybe it's being used a lot now. So I'm curious why we need more pavilions if we're not using the current pavilion. So I'd like to dig into those things and find out. And I agree definitely that extending the process to help funds go elsewhere would be good, and also ending a lawsuit.
Thank you. Question number 4. If y'all would be able to, if you could mute your microphones after you get done talking, I'd appreciate it. So number 4 is, as a board member, what would you do to ensure that board actions are transparent and adequately communicated to the members?
That's a hard one. I feel like I'm on the dating game, like question number 4. Bachelor number 4. Let's see. The transparency is really, I'm not sure I understand that at all. I think that we have right now a terrific website where we can post things. I know that sometimes the office staff gets very busy, and not an excuse, an explanation. We have a very active membership for purposes of gathering information and that sort of thing. So I'm all for the transparency. I'm all for providing as much information prior to the meetings as possible. Sometimes that just isn't possible, but I know that Judy is now committed to putting things up on as much as possible. I mean, just tonight we got live on Facebook. I think that's terrific, and I'm committed to pushing that even further, in the future as we sort of enter in this next phase of the board. 2021. Yeah.
Colby.
So I think the best way to be doing that would be, a lot of times I read on Nextdoor that things don't get communicated till the last minute. So I think part of that probably would fall on a responsibility of us to things that we want to vote on or things that we want to get addressed instead of waiting until the last minute, get that stuff to Judy in advance. As well as, we have, like Becky said, we have the TOPS platform that we can post things to and just increase transparency, and as well as communication, letting people know that that does exist, that you can log in and only community members can see it. I think it's a good tool that we just need to basically educate the community on that we have and what it's capable of doing.
Thank you. Jim?
Would you repeat the question, please?
Yes,
I want
sir.
to understand.
As a board member, what would you do to ensure that board actions are transparent and adequately communicated to the members?
Well, I think what we're doing this evening is a great place to start. I think having a Zoom meeting and being live on Facebook, and as other people said, is trying to get the agenda out in front early and we probably need to look at the Texas Open Meetings Act and use that as a model to start putting our meetings and our gatherings together under that act. That's the best way I know to approach transparency.
Thank you. David?
I agree with Jim on the Texas Open Meetings Act. I was on the NVD board when we set that up, and we have been audited. Fair Oaks has been audited by other communities, and I think in part to see how things are run. So we should have open meetings. I realize there's need for executive sessions, but I don't think that should be done. A lot of times it's and shortly after the meeting with members, members should be allowed to come and give their comments and be spoken with. Also, using all the media, like you mentioned, the Facebook, messaging boards, any way to, I really like these when I have to deal with people and they actually respond that they received. And I know it's probably electronic, but it's kind of nice to know that your message was actually received, and then respond to it. Somebody gets to respond to that query. So that's what I would push for.
Thank you. Teal?
So the first thing is with the transparency. The first thing I think is important is that a lot of the transparency, I feel like the board at this point in time is held hostage a lot of times, and because we have a lot of armchair, quarterbacks on social media, that if anything, you try to get anything out and it's not, someone translates it a different way, then so it's almost like walking on eggshells. And so a lot of times it's hard to get things out because you have to go through legal before you can get anything out or say anything publicly. So with that said, there's also a lot of things that have been brought up about social media, mailings, but it is nice to have Judy there to be able to just go to the office. So I think the board is trying to do a great job at this point in time of making everything as available as possible. But again, sometimes kind of walking on eggshells about getting things out before it's goes through legal and things like that. So
thank you. All right. For our final question of the night, before we get into the closing remarks, and Colby, we will start off with you on this one. The question is, do you have any personal involvement with the lawsuit by certain members against FORHA, financially or otherwise? If yes, do you agree to recuse yourself from voting on or participating in planning related to the lawsuit? And if no, as a board member, how would you work to ensure that all members of the community are represented?
So no, I don't have any involvement in the lawsuit. I think the best way to represent that all members of the community are represented is communication. I mean, transparency is key. We have to figure out ways to communicate with each other and set realistic expectations. There's never, in my mind, a reason why, as opposed to communicating with someone, you need to jump to something as aggressive as a lawsuit. So, there's probably some steps we could do or could have done maybe beforehand. And I think we need to go back and try and fix.
You muted yourself.
I did mute myself. That was it.
Oh, okay, sorry.
I can keep talking.
That's
Becky, I
okay.
still like your
The
background.
minute's up anyway. Jim, the question to you, do you have any personal involvement with the lawsuit by certain members against FORHA financially or otherwise? If yes, do you agree to recuse yourself from voting on or participating in planning related to the lawsuit? If no, as a board member, how would you work to ensure that all members of the community are represented?
I have some interest in the lawsuit, and the answer,
Oh, I think we lost audio. Sorry, Jim. There we go. We're back. I
okay.
apologize.
Yes, I have some involvement with the lawsuit. I believe state law requires me to recuse myself of those conversations. Thank you.
David.
Yes, I have had some involvement with the lawsuit, and I would also recuse myself.
Thank you. Teal.
Went to the wrong thing. There we go. No, I do not have any involvement in the lawsuit. And, you know, like Colby said, I would try to, I love talking to everybody, and I want to know why people stand where they stand. And I would do everything, you know, if I was on the board, to work together, you know, moving forward so we can bridge our divisiveness and you know, all the splitting of the community. So, but I do not have anything to do with the lawsuit.
Thank you. Becky.
No, I have nothing to do with the lawsuit. And like Teal, I would love to have a meeting of the minds, kind of talk things through. Multiple times I've kind of asked, like, you know, what is the issue? You know, and it happens to be, I think, part of the bylaws issue, and folks, you know, to some extent don't believe that the bylaws that we have in place right now are legally binding. But we have legal counsel on all of this, and we're not able to talk openly about it as a result of there being a lawsuit. And so we're under advisement, and it's very frustrating. I will tell you that 5 times over. I wish, you know, like technology, we have like a rewind button that allows us to like watch things over again, or even a redo button or a mulligan in golf. Like if we were to just to have something like that to rely on without having to worry about legal counsel, about advisements, that would be awesome. But
Thank you.
we need to be as transparent as possible.
Thank you. All right, so we've only been running about almost 45 minutes, and there have been a couple of questions that came in from the community. So I'm going to try, I think they're fairly short. So if we could maybe even try to keep these to 30 seconds instead of a minute, we could get through both of these, and then we'll do closing and still be out of here hopefully in pretty good time. So what I'm going to do is I'll just start back over with Jim on this question. And the first question is, what are your thoughts on using trail cameras or other methods to determine actual parks usage for evaluation and consideration of further expenditures?
I think we need to do exactly that. You know, I've heard people say they see 5 people a week across one of the parks. I don't think that's reasonable to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars for 5 people a week. However, that's also what people say, and that's their opinion. And I'd rather have raw facts, hard facts, than surveys, because people will say what they think everybody wants to hear in a survey.
Thank you. David.
Yes, I don't have a real problem with having trail cameras. More so, in my opinion, for safety. I mean, I pretty well assume there's cameras everywhere now, and it seems like just the way the world's moving. So that's I would more think of it for a safety purpose, and that's it.
Thank you. Teal.
Trial and error. I like the idea of trail cameras on one hand, like David said, for the safety. On the other hand, where does the money come from? Where's the management? Where's the, when working with Wildlife Education Committee, we had a lot of times those cameras were sabotaged. or broken or taken down, you know, with mischief. So just the management process of it. But I mean, I think it's a great safety thing. I do think there's a lot of money that follows it though. So.
Thank you. Becky?
Yeah, so I would probably be much more inclined to say that we should do a time study, you know, have some volunteers, have the board of directors kind of do a time study over a certain period of time just to check on the actual usage. I mean, the cameras to me, they open up all kinds of doors. Cost is one. Second, yes, security, but who's going to manage that? We don't really have a security professional on staff. And then on top of that, you know, you get into some possibilities associated with like, you know, what do you do with the information when you have it, you know, assuming it's a security issue. So like I said, time study associated with usage.
Thank you. Colby?
So I actually agree with Teal and Becky on this. So I have game cameras at my ranch, and I can tell you that the sun wears down on them, beats them. They don't last forever. They get knocked off. I've even had them stolen. You also do have to manage them. You have to go out and move them, put them back on, take out the memory card. I think a lot of people would also have privacy issues. With the idea of us taking pictures of them and their kids playing. I don't know if that would settle well with a lot of the community. It's one of those things, in theory, it sounds good, and it would probably help solve a problem. But when it actually comes to implementation, I don't think it would work out well.
Thank you. For the last question tonight, would you support having a management company assume the administrative responsibility of our HOA? And on this one, we will start with Dave.
You know, I've had that, somebody brought that question to me, so I've thought about it. And I would prefer it stayed with volunteer neighbors. Again, we all live here. We all really do want the best for our membership. Only if it came down to it, but I would prefer we didn't go that route.
Thank you. Teal?
I would prefer we didn't go that route.
Oh,
You
sorry.
said Teal.
I said Teal.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I prefer we did not go that route. I think that being able to go into our to the FORHA office and get the information that we need and know the people and also the volunteers around us, it keeps our community like our own hometown. And I'm not up for subsidizing that out or putting that out to a management company.
Thank you. Becky?
Yeah, I think management companies would be a costly option. I also don't think that they would be invested in the community like our community volunteers are. I work in HR. There are some organizations that have shared services that they outsource. Sometimes those folks work out, sometimes they don't, but they don't necessarily have like a corporate badge on that helps them to feel like they have a dog in the fight, some real meat in the game. So no, I don't think I would support that.
Thank you. Colby?
Absolutely not. I've been part of those HOAs. I'm part of one on a place we have, a little vacation home, and the fees are outrageous. They go up every year. I don't know where the money is being spent. And they definitely do not have our best interest in mind as much as theirs. I think members of the community, everyone who's on this call, we're all going to have the best interest of the community at heart before any third party will.
Thank you. Jim?
Absolutely not.
That's all.
Everybody's already said all the reasons why not. Okay, every one of us on this call is invested in this community. We have skin in the game, is what someone else said, and that's the bottom line. when you go to a management company, they care about their bottom line. They don't care about us.
All right, thank you. Now we're going to move on to closing remarks. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to give their remarks, and we're going to go in reverse order of what we did for our opening statement. And so we will start off with Colby for closing remarks. Maybe.
So I think my video feed went away. Can y'all hear my audio,
Yes.
Yes.
guys?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I think my video feed went away, so I did. Okay. So in closing, I mean, guys, I think we've said everything that pretty much needs to be said. You know, again, I want to bring in a new feel to the HOA. I've got lots of background experience in different boards in communication with different personalities and trying to solve issues. I think I could do that same thing for our community. And, you know, this all kind of goes back to why we serve, why are we taking time out of our day to do this? I mean, I think anybody who's on this call, the fact that you're willing to volunteer time and go above and beyond for your community is, you know, already applauded right there. So, you know, I think I like myself and everyone on this call, it's a good cause, and that's why I want to be involved.
Thank you. Becky.
I'm so optimistic about the future. I mean, just meeting y'all candidates has just been really, really nice. You know, however it all goes, I think this community is up for some really amazing things over the next 3 years. I would like to meet with the various neighborhood HOAs to get a sense of what's meaningful to y'all. And I have a few numbers from the directory, but not names. So if any of you are out there, please give me a call. You can reach me. Contact information is on page 67 at the bottom left-hand corner of the directory. Other than that, I plan to be out there in the community. I'll be wearing a shirt very similar to my background. So if you see me, wave. I'm going to try to be at Parker's a couple nights over the next couple weeks, at least until the 19th. I will probably gain a lot of weight, but I'd love to be there, chat with you, and share some stories over ice cream. So stay safe, and I love this community.
Thank you, Becky. Teal.
I really appreciate what Becky had to say. I mean, this is a fabulous community that we live in. If I'm on the board, I just will do everything I can to show grace and to communicate, and not just for what I use. You know, obviously I ride the trails almost every day on my horse. And then I'm always down at the parks, and I love letting little kids pet my horse and everything. But to understand the other people that don't use the parks and trails and what's important to them. And I will, you know, like Becky, I'm out and about. I love talking to anyone. Most people, I'm on social media, on Fair Oaks Ranch, I can't even think. Nextdoor, you can definitely reach me all the time on Nextdoor. But I think that there are great things ahead of this community. There's a lot of good people on the panel right now and in the existing board. And so it's really exciting to see how everything will be bridged together again. So.
Thank you. David?
Yes, I'd like to say the same thing that Becky and others have said about I think it looks like a real good group of candidates, and I appreciate everybody who took the time out to get into this Zoom meeting and visit with us and see what we're about. As was said previously, I think you have a good bunch to choose from, and we do all want to do a lot of positive things for our community. I think I'm going to stay away from the ice cream parlor because I don't need that ice cream, but I'll go to Spotted Deer and try to visit with people. And I'm reachable too. I just joined Nextdoor. I barely looked at it, but it looks like a really interesting site to be at, and I'll make some comments there. And I just want to say thank you very much, and look forward to the next few weeks.
Thank you. Jim, close us out.
I think that we've got a great group of people here running for office, and it actually looks, as Becky and other people said, it looks like we might have a great board coming up in 2021. I think we're all committed to making a better community out of what we have. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to stay away from the ice cream too. I've been on a diet all year. I've lost 30 pounds. I don't want to gain it back at one time.
Thank you very much. Thank you to each of the candidates for your time and for your willingness to discuss these issues with the community today with us on Zoom. We thank each of you for putting your name forward to serve our community. To the members, please consider volunteering for our FORHA committees, events, and for park upkeep. I know Sarah always tells me she needs help out there. Please contact the FORHA office and talk to one of our great staff members for more details on any of those things. Voting for this election is currently open, and votes can be cast by returning your mail-in ballot received from FORHA in the mail, or you can vote online at www.forha.org by filling out the proxy provided in the ballot mailer from FORHA, or by providing your vote during the annual meeting, which will be held virtually at 7 p.m. on November the 19th. We thank you everyone for attending tonight, and good luck to each of our candidates. Thank you.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Thank y'all very much. Take care.
Thank you.
Good night.
Bye-bye.